course creators to increase their sales by getting them qualified leads on autopilot. The Digital Marketing Show is a project that has a simple idea but a powerful one. Add value to your business by sharing how our successful guests are achieving their goals, growing their business, and living a different lifestyle. Hello guys, how are you doing? Today I've got Ravi Abuvala. He's a law school dropout who has leveraged the power of virtual assistant and automation to scale two business to 7 figures in under 2 years while traveling around the world. That's amazing. How are you doing, mate?
I appreciate that. I'm doing awesome, Lewis. I appreciate you having me on the show today, man. That was a cool little intro. Like I said, I've done like 300 of them. I've never seen an intro like that before.
Yes.
It'll be hard for me to follow that up. So that's very nice.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that, brother. So I guess you in quarantine as well?
I am, very much so. I live in San Diego with 4 other entrepreneurs. So, we joke around because in all honesty, our day-to-day life literally has not changed at all. Like the only thing is we're not going to the gym, but other than that, we're pretty much doing the exact same stuff that we usually do. So, we're blessed to run online companies. And so, we're still doing business, making money. And we're doing a lot. Cool thing is I've noticed is I've had a lot more time to work on some back-end stuff reading and a lot more knowledge and like consumption and programs. So, obviously what's happening in the world is insane, but I definitely say that we're kind of making the most out of it for sure.
Absolutely, brother. All right, cool. So let's jump straight to it. How did you get started? Like, how did you manage to build a 2 7-figure business?
Great question. For me, it kind of started a while ago. To me, it kind of started when, to keep a very long story short, I was planning on going to law school here in the United States. That was like always the long-term goal of mine, not for any specific reason other than I just wanted to make money. Mm-hmm. And that was what my dad told me that people did to make money. They were either a lawyer or a doctor. And law school was 3 years after college. Medical school is 10 years after college. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to do 10 years. So that was pretty much the reason why I chose it. And that was what I was planning on doing my whole life. But then I graduated from college, and like, I don't know if you know too much about law school or the law school admission test in the United States, but it's the hardest standardized test in the United States.
I watched Suits. I think that they mentioned that.
So I tell people all the time. My whole idea of being a lawyer just came from watching Suits and Law and Order. Like those are the 2 things that like made me think I want to be a lawyer.
Show. I love it. Yeah.
And which, by the way, nothing to do with like real life law. Like
you wouldn't be how he's like to them.
No, I thought I would be. I thought that was like who I was going to be, but no. And so for the law school admission test, you have to, if you want to get into one of the top schools in the country, you pretty much take a year off in between college and law school, and you study for a year, 12 hours a day, like a full-time job. Wow. So that's what I did. And I graduated college from Florida State University. And then literally 3 days later, I was driving back home to in Florida where I grew up, and I got a call from my dad, and he was actually diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And kind of threw me for a loop. And so instead of unpacking my stuff in Florida, I turned right, went straight up to Atlanta, Georgia, moved in with my dad, and literally for the next year, almost 12 months, I did chemo and radiation with him for 5 days a week, literally for 8 hours a day. And while I'm doing chemo and radiation with him, I'm like studying for law school. So, he's okay now, and we're really blessed he's in remission. But once again, it was like a blessing in disguise because it made me kind of pump the brakes on the whole law school thing and maybe realize how fragile life was, and maybe I was going after stuff for the wrong reasons. And I got around that time I was being retargeted by like Ty Lopez's ads and a few other guys' ads. And I would see these like the actual ads I could care less about, but testimonials and social proof is always where it's at for me. So I'd see these, I'd like go on YouTube and like look at his stuff, and I'd see these testimonials of people that, I'll just be frank with you, Lewis. I was like, all right, I'm definitely smarter than these guys here. And these guys are doing like $10,000 a month. I was like, if these guys can do it, I can do it. And that's the cool thing about social media. I think a lot of people don't talk about today is like, it shows you what's possible. And so for me, everyone thinks everything's such a scam out there, right? But for me, it showed me what was possible, and I would like DM or Instagram message, Facebook message these people and make sure they were real. And then once I knew it was real, I was like, forget it. So I bought into Ty Lopez's original course, which was good. But it was like, he barely taught it, and it was very, very high level stuff. But
He
I
hired
did
quite a lot of
leverage
people
that.
to do the job for him as well.
Yeah, exactly. To do the other stuff. He was, I don't
He's
hate
a
him
smart
for
guy.
anything.
Yeah, he's a very smart guy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've met him in Las Vegas. We've been
Oh,
out
cool.
together.
Awesome.
Photo with him and I, yeah.
Yeah.
But then people call me another Ty Lopez, which is pretty funny everywhere. I went to an event in Miami, and Ty Lopez spoke at it, and I went to this house party afterwards, and everybody was like tapping me on the shoulder, thinking that I was Ty Lopez at this event. It was actually pretty funny. But yeah, so I bought into his stuff. His stuff just kind of opened my eyes to what was possible.
Yeah.
I signed my first client. And that was after that I was hooked. I was like, you know what, this is going to be how I make my money. And so I ended up taking the law school admission test. I scored I got a 169, which is the top 10% of test takers in the United States. So I could have gotten to the school that I wanted to. But I ended up was like, you know what, I'll make money online, and it's been kind of a hell of a roller coaster since then.
That's awesome. And I find it really important what you mentioned that something happened, in your life. And I think that everything happens for a reason, right? Like, and that moment for you where you realize that you're like, well, that's not what I want. And then you just moved to a different, place where now you can be a lot more focused, and you can really be with your family if you choose to, like you can travel, you've got this freedom, and you can do whatever you want, while if you actually became a lawyer, that would be a completely different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, around the same time I was like wavering about going to law school. My dad was he was the one that really wanted me to go, and like nothing against my dad, right? Parents, they just want the best for you. That's all there is to it.
But they don't know any better,
and they don't know what the best for you is. They don't know what the best for you is.
Yeah.
And my dad wasn't a lawyer himself, right? So like he was telling me to do it. That's one piece of advice. Anybody that watches this, like only take advice from people that are exactly where you want to be. And so he was like introducing me to all these lawyers, and we'd go out to dinners with all these lawyers, trying to have these lawyers convince me to stay in law school. And all these lawyers were telling me not to go to law school. They were saying, don't go, right? It's like if it's one of the top law schools, like $200,000 in debt you have to take out, then it's 3 years of your life. And so a lot of the actual lawyers were telling me not to do it either. So yeah, it's once again, if you're a lawyer, all the respect to you, but you're working 70, 80, 90 hours a week. There's no guarantee of any kind of promotion or raise. Doesn't matter how hard you work. Unlike business, like you can work very hard and you can not see a promotion for 5 to 10 years. And it's very stressful. It's one of the highest like substance abuse professions out there. And so after all that stuff, and then once I learned, I interned for a lawyer in Atlanta, Georgia. Once I learned it was nothing like Suits, I was like, all right, I'm out of here. This is not anything like
for me. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, exactly. So I decided not to do it.
Cool. So, all right. So you realized that that's not what you wanted. You started the TileOps course, and then what happened after that? Like when it clicked?
Yeah, great question. So like I took the course, and then I got one client, which was like the girl I was talking to at the time. Her dad was a plastic surgeon. So I got one client, that was him. And I had him as a client for like 8 months. And the entire time I was working with him, I was like, I just kept on thinking that like, all right, any second now he's going to cancel. Cause I wasn't really doing anything, but like, doing front of the end Facebook advertising. I don't really know what I was doing. And it wasn't until about August of 2018 that I joined another program, and I went to a mastermind, and I learned like the power of like virtual assistants and systems and standard operating procedures. And so I just finished my webinar where I break down my entire story. It's pretty insane, honestly, on my website, raviabuvala.com. And like while I'm creating this, I like took a screenshot of where I was from January to August of 2018. I did $3,000 total revenue. And then from August to December, it's January to October, I did $3,000. October to December, I did $20,000. So like huge difference for me in those two revenues. And the biggest things that I learned was like, the power of virtual assistants, the power of like productizing your back end, the power of lead generation. And so like, that's when stuff started. So literally October, like I can name the specific date and specific month, was when I started learning about other people's time, other people's money, hiring employees, all that kind of stuff. And like, since that day in October, there hasn't been one day that's gone by that I haven't done lead generation. So it's been, and that's, I think, why my companies are where they're at right now. So it's incredibly blessed to be able to learn that kind of early on in my business career. Although it was 8 months in, so for me, it felt like forever.
That's fantastic. So where do you get your VAs from?
So originally, ironically enough, when I first got my first virtual assistant, it was from a gentleman that ran a virtual assistant placement company. And I was a referral from a good friend of mine that was doing really well in the agency space. And so I got it from him, and my friend told me it was going to be one price. And then when I talked to the guy on the phone, he told me a price that was literally 10 times higher than that. And I was like, oh, I thought it was in this. He's like, well, we've had better results, and better results means higher prices. And I was like, well, I honestly can't argue with that, so I'll pay for it. Ended up paying for it. The whole experience was honestly kind of subpar in my opinion. If you're a business owner, you go through some like another person's business the whole time. You're thinking like, this could be better here. At least for me, that's what I do. And so for me, I was like, well, this wasn't that great, but I did get an incredible virtual assistant out of it. She still works with me today. Her name's Mel Jane. She runs a lot of my companies for me, and could not do anything that I do without her. So I was happy with the end result, but the whole experience was kind of wishy-washy. And I was like, you know what, whatever. I'll go back to my advertising agency. And then once we brought my advertising agency to seven figures, multiple seven figures, I had a lot of people kind of just like you asking me like, hey, what was the turning point? When did you start seeing differences? Or they'd see me. I lived in Medellin, Colombia for 4 months last year. And then I lived in Spain. I traveled all around, was snowboarding most of the year. And so I had my friends messaging me like, how, I was with you when you first joined this, and now you're here. How did you do this? And I was like, well, really, it was just virtual assistants, and it was the standard operating procedures, lead generation. So where can I get a VA? So I essentially very slowly, from just like a demand standpoint, started finding and placing virtual assistants for my friends, and then it became for clients. And now we have like a fully placed virtual assistant placement company in the Philippines. We have an office, we have a training center, and we place anywhere from 50 to 100 every single month for online entrepreneurs. And so like I get mine, I source them from places like Amazon, AT&T, American Express, like all these call centers in the Philippines that kind of pay poorly, and they have poor work conditions for these Filipinos. And we take them in, we teach them how to work from home. We teach them all the lead generation tactics, all of the back end work, how to work with an online entrepreneur. And then we place them inside of someone's company essentially to work for them.
That's amazing. Yeah. Because I actually worked with VAs in the past, and I found that if you need to go and find your own, it can be really tough, isn't it? Like if you don't know what you're doing. And I didn't actually have a very good experience, but at the time I didn't know what I was doing in terms of getting a VA. So then I got a VA that couldn't really speak a lot of English. She knew what she was doing to a certain extent, but it was a terrible experience. Then I got a second one, and then I was a little bit better at what I was doing. So it was a lot better, and she could help me quite a lot. So in terms of like your business, like is it just how does it work in terms of like how do you match the client with the VA just so they can really take advantage of each other's work?
Say that one more time. You kind of read the. How do I do what with the business? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's cool. So how do you get to match them, like so they really get a lot of advantages from working together with each other? Because for me, it was really hard to really get a VA and find one that could do what I did. And to be honest with you as well, I think part of that, and a lot of business owners will probably agree with me as well. When you have your business, you're very protective. You're like, nah, nobody's going to do like I do it. And I know if you want to scale, you need to get a VA to help you out. You need to get some more people in your team. And I always get professionals to work with me because you need to get people that really like and love, in fact, what they do. Otherwise, they won't actually do it and you're going to have problems. So, how do you do your magic?
Yeah, great question. And so we kind of see it breaks. It's funny because I just had this conversation. We're about to work this huge JV deal with somebody, and I was like breaking it down this way. Like, I think virtual assistants are one of the best things someone can have for their company, especially coming as like an entrepreneur that's like working by themselves, because they're very low like cost employees that you can kind of. The way I put it was like, look, I think every single person is a better employer and a business owner when you have employees, right? For a majority of different reasons, you work harder. there's some kind of team spirit there. It's a little more fun to do stuff with other people, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's better to have employees. And I think virtual assistants are a very low barrier for you to have your first employee. Not a lot can go wrong. It's very affordable, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of times when I see people do poorly with virtual assistants, 9 times out of 10, it can go back actually to the entrepreneur and not on the virtual assistant, right? It's like the entrepreneur doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and then they hire someone expecting just this person to know what to do, when in reality, the entrepreneur has no idea what they are doing or what they should be doing. And then the other thing, the only time I see the difference in like having bad virtual assistants is if, they place them from places like Upwork or Fiverr or like on Facebook for free or whatever it is. They don't go through some kind of training process or vetting process. And like the only thing I don't like about Upwork and Fiverr is that those virtual assistants, that you're one of 15 to 30 clients for that virtual assistant. They could really care less about what happens with your business. Where if you hire an employee, like they eat and sleep and live your company. So when they're not working for your company, they're thinking about how they can make your company better, right? Huge difference. That goes on all levels of employment for all of my team members. We're like mostly their sole company, but in the instance of where the entrepreneur is usually lacking is like, we give you a fully trained, fully vetted virtual assistant for $2.50 an hour, but then they don't know what to do with them. They don't know what the first move should be, where they should be focusing, what their messaging should be. So when we first did this, it was like, here's a VA. And then we realized that a lot of people were like, I don't know what to do now. Like, what do I do with my hands? And so what we started doing instead was like, hey, we're training the virtual assistant on how to work best with this entrepreneur. What if we started training the entrepreneur on how to work best with the virtual assistant? So now we do like coaching with the entrepreneur. We give an entire course. We teach like what your lead generation tactics should be. These are everything as a virtual assistant coming in, knowing how to learn. Here's what your messaging should be. Here's how you automate the whole back end. Like it's like everything. So that way we kind of combine both sides of that to where the VA is coming in fully trained, ready to go. And then the entrepreneur is coming in fully trained, ready to go. And then like day one, they're literally hitting the ground running instead of them like doing that kind of awkward transition phase. Like that's what we found to work the best.
That's great, man. Yeah, I really, got to agree with you. Like, this is awesome. When I had mine, I created like an operational procedure, and it was like a spreadsheet. And in the beginning, it was hard because like she was reluctant to, go and update everything because she thought I would get rid of her. But the idea is that, if for me as a business owner, if I knew everything that needed to be done, and if I knew everything that she needed done, if she ever need to leave for whatever the reason, I can get another person and they already know what to do. So for me, it was a safety thing, but it was also for her, because if everything's documented and one day she's sick and I need to do something, I know what's happening as well. So how do you guys work around that as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the good things that we have is like social proof. So I just posted on my Facebook the other day, we just hit 500 virtual assistants placed in the past. Our company's been around for almost 10 months now. So we have a really strong foothold in the Filipino community of being just like a great company. So like some of the things that'll happen is like we'll have clients that will lie to us about where they're at in their company or something like that, or they'll lie to our virtual assistant and they'll have a virtual assistant work for a full month and then not pay the virtual assistant at the end of that month. And so what I do is I actually take the money out of my pocket and I pay that virtual assistant so that they're paid, because that's the right thing to do. And also because I have essentially like a authority in that industry. I have a reputation in the industry. I don't want to be known as the guy that places people with shitty people, essentially. And so I've built that up over 10 months and 11 months now, where they know like, look, if you're not staying with your employee, 9 times out of 10, it's because the virtual assistant's not doing a good job, not because the employer is not doing a good job. So for us, like all these virtual assistants, they come in trained. They know how, like one of the things we train them is comm skills and how to be an efficient virtual assistant and how to create and write SOPs. So they understand the reasoning behind, like you just explained to me right here, why you need SOPs, right? What happens if she gets sick? Another option could be what happens, like if you do everything really well, Lewis, you're probably going to need to hire another team member very soon. And so like your original team member will most likely manage that team member. So you need to have that SOP written out so that she can easily transfer those team tasks, the one that she just hired, the one below her as well. So like I think everything's about communication, especially with employees. So we kind of explain that to them in the very beginning and show them this is how it's going to be. And this is why you need to document everything that you do. But once again, when you're getting like these one-off VAs or these VAs from different sources, like unfortunately they don't know all of that. And so you have to kind of explain to him and play that battle. But with us, it's like they already know. And the cool thing is the entrepreneur gets all of the standard operating procedures and the VA gets all the standard operating procedures. We give them ours in our company, over 50 of them that we give them. And then, yeah, I've never really heard of anybody in our company having that issue, but it's most likely because everybody kind of understands from the get-go, like, look, in the interview, we say, like, look, this is going to be a long-term partnership, minimum 1 year, like more like 3 to 5 years is going to be this partnership with this virtual assistant. Everybody in there goes and knows it. All my employees have been with me for 2+ years. So like and they're virtual assistants. So they kind of understand how the game works. But if you're not coming through a virtual assistant placement company, just being super clear, like literally what you just explained to me right here about why you needed it, that should work. And if that doesn't work, then you might need to find a new employee.
Cool. And I guess it's a great way as well for people that are trying to scale their business, because, you know, they can have like an extra pair of hands to work with them as well. So what they should be sharing with the virtual assistant and what they shouldn't be sharing with them, because I know a lot of people, they trust with time for them to look after their finances and, you know, bookkeeping and things like that. So from your point of view, what do you reckon that they should be looking after and shouldn't? And also what's the best way, or how do you guys enable the clients to oversee what they're doing? Do you guys have any kind of platforms or something like that as well?
Yeah, so for us, one of the main reasons why our clients hire virtual assistants is for lead generation, right? Like, I think leads and sales are the lifeblood of every business, and you just need to have more of those, and everything else can kind of fall into place. Like, we cover a lot more than leads and sales inside of our program, Scaling with Systems, but that's the whole first half of it, because like you need those for any of the other stuff to even matter, right? You're not going to have an employee or a company if you don't have any leads coming in. So one of the first things we recommend a lot of our clients doing is starting with getting the virtual assistant to be bringing in leads or warming up leads or qualifying leads or whatever it is. So that way that's consistently coming in every single day. And usually that can be done very easily through like cold emailing, where that doesn't require them to have access to any of your stuff, or cold calling, where it doesn't require them to have access to your stuff. And just slowly over time, you're going to start trusting them more and more. Once again, if you work with a virtual assistant placement company, like we offer a lifetime guarantee, we vet all this stuff. We vet all of the employees, like we see their past employee experience. So it's a little safer, but like, you know, with anybody, or if you're going by yourself, there obviously are some risks involved. So just like if you're, it doesn't matter if they're working in the Philippines as a virtual assistant or it's my, sister, you're going to start giving them like small tasks that don't require a whole lot of stuff and just slowly increase it over time. And so for us, it was like they were doing lead generation, then they were doing lead qualifying, then they were doing lead fulfillment, then they were doing onboarding. And then at some point to this day, I was sitting in Medellin, Colombia, and I was like, why am I doing payroll right now? This is something easily someone can do. I'm just typing in numbers. So that was the first time I ever gave my virtual assistant access to my credit card. And so she has access to my credit card. And then if you really think about it, Tim Ferriss, who wrote the 4-Hour Workweek, he talks about worst case scenarios. I forget the exact way he puts it, but it's like, okay, I give them my credit card, and if they end up spending more money than I wanted them to, I have an American Express, and the American Express is attached to PayPal. So I give them login to PayPal, and let's say worst case scenario, they spend $1,000 on something I didn't want them to do. Well, PayPal protects you. They have buyer protection. And then American Express is probably one of the best consumer protection cards out there. So I knew that between both of them, I could totally be safe. But I had already been working with her for a year. And so I already knew that she trusted me. I trusted her. And I've been paying her every single month with bonuses like for over a year. Or is she going to risk it for a few $100s? Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? She's there for the long term. I am as well, just like any other employee. So for us, like, we give them small things, and I've learned that people seem to do their job a million times better when you give them discretion, meaning you give them an ability to make decisions. If you're the bottleneck, if you hire somebody and you want them to do something, but in order to do that thing, they have to come through you every time, well, then what is the point of hiring them in the first place, right? You're still the bottleneck in that. So I actually err on the side of like giving full autonomy to all my employees and letting them, and all the great books I've read, like Good to Great and all this kind of stuff, they've talked about the same thing, right? That's the best way to go. And so you can give them all the power to do it. You remove yourself from the equation and they'll adapt. And because you're trusting them, it's the law of reciprocity. They're going to trust you as well. And so it's like kind of goes back and forth. And then like just We don't really use it for auditing or to track our employees, but we do it more for just knowing how many hours they work a month. We do use the software we talk about inside of our program. It's called Screenshot Monitor, and it takes a screenshot of their computer every 2 minutes. And so you can see what they've been working on. Like we check their efficiency. So like what they've been working on, how much time are they spending on certain applications, tasks, whatever it is. But in reality, it's really more so we can just track numbers at the end of every single month. So, just trusting them and building up trust over a little bit of time, just like you would any other employee, is kind of the way to do it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, thank you. So, what is it now for your business with the crisis that is happening right now with the coronavirus and all that stuff? How does it affect you? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How is it going?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You'd have to really spin it for it to be a good thing. The good thing would be, that I'm able to stay at home, a little more me time. I get to, like I said before we went live here, I'm like reading a lot more. I'm being a lot more engaged with some of the other programs I'm in. I'm being more engaged with my clients. So those are the pros of it. But the cons are my brother he has 2 restaurants in the state of Florida. Those are being obliterated right now. He has no business coming in. I have plenty of friends and clients that are just in the business to consumer industry. So, no one's buying right now. No one's leaving their home. So I see that, every crisis brings an opportunity, and some of the greatest companies in the world, IBM, Airbnb, Microsoft, they were all created during times of super high unemployment, GDP low, recession, et cetera, et cetera. So like everything's on sale. So it just depends on how you look at it. We're at our companies and Scaling with Systems seeing this as an opportunity because a lot of people are retreating. So we track our numbers really, really religiously inside of our companies. And so like we know we're still cash profitable. We know we're still this time's return on investment, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're just going to keep on pushing the envelope and acting like nothing's changed until that stuff changes. And I have a plan for what happens when that stuff changes. But I think a lot of people just get really emotional and they don't understand like, we have plenty of clients inside of our Scaling with Systems program that are still making plenty of money. Like there's no doubt about it, or at least at the very bare minimum, getting deposits. And so, I think that's important for people to remove their emotions from the whole situation and understand that, look, it doesn't matter if it's the coronavirus, it's a recession, it's depression. If you have the solutions to somebody's problem, people will still pay for it. Like that's just how business is. That's how capitalism is, et cetera, et cetera. So, is it affecting us? Sure. I mean, it's affecting everybody. I think I'd be really naive to be like, no, we're totally all hunky-dory and dandy. But is it as severe as far as business right now as what people make it out to be? No. Will it be different in 90 to 120 days? Possibly. But the cool thing is we've built really lean companies and we have plans in place for if stuff does really hit the fan. But yeah, I think the key thing is just being prepared, figuring out what's the best case scenario, what's an okay scenario, what's the worst case scenario, and having 3 different action plans for that to happen.
Amazing, mate. Awesome. Thank you so much. We're just wrapping up now. Thank you so much for, your time. I learned a lot, from you about the VAs and all that stuff. So if someone wants to contact you, is that your best URL?
Yeah, that's pretty much it right there. There's raviabuvala.com that you can go to as well. But, workwithravi.com/free-stuff. That's Ravi, R-A-V-I. That's usually the best because that'll have my YouTube, my Instagram, my Facebook. It'll have if you want to talk to us a little bit more about VA placement, you can see some of my other podcasts I've been on, et cetera, et cetera. But usually I like to send people to that so they can kind of get a better idea of where they want to go from there. But yeah, man, it's been an absolute pleasure, Lewis. Thanks for having me on here. I really do appreciate it. I know ironically, I was actually going to go to Tony Robbins' event in February in Australia, but ended up not working out for me. But I've been wanting to go over there for a minute. I heard it's absolutely beautiful. So I'll have to hit you up when I head that way.
Yeah, we'll go grab a beer. I'll be good.
Appreciate it, Lewis.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bye.